should remain like more in a spiritual sense, hafshata, like removed from physical features.
What's going on in the Kabbalah Center in Los Angeles? What's going on
At the same time, they could give Mishalim about it.
So
Right, they give Mishalim, but the see, there's two ways of understanding, and this is basically. There was the shir here we had this past Thursday there for the shluchim. There is the Rebbe Rashab writes to understand Chassidus. This is the famous letter from the Rebbe Rashab. Maybe once we're done with the Maimon, we'll be able to learn that. The Rebbe Rashab writes that to understand Chassidus, there's two concepts. We're learning about Chochma Bina, for example. We're learning about Chochma Bina or Memala Kolom, Seviv Kolom and Malar Kolom. Learning about the attribute of Chochma or Bina or Seviv Kolom and how he encompasses worlds and how he encloses himself in world. So the Rebbe Rashab says we shouldn't forget there's two things here. There is Inyan Eliki and there's the Inyan of Elikus. This is a letter the Rebbe Rashab writes to the Frierdiker Rebbe. And the Frierdiker Rebbe asked him actually we can say it, 1914. Tevis, Tafresh Ayin Dalet. What is Chassidus? This is a Rebbe, Ben Rebbe, asking his father what is Chassidus when he's already in the middle of the Hemshech Ayin Beis. He's asking what is Chassidus? And the Rebbe Rashab, it's a very unusual letter. By the end he writes, I'm writing it to you that there shouldn't be any copies made. This is a maimer. This is a letter that got to us. The letter is a long letter, a beautiful letter. It's the Matan Torah of understanding Chassidus. A beautiful, very basic maimer, a letter. And it's a shot because people are not aware of this letter even. So the Rebbe Rashab says the two. So the Rebbe Rashab goes into the whole thing. First of all, a whole big paragraph, a page. I never delved into it. What is Chassidus? It never bothered me. He says, what I have to go into the circle of research around it? I learned Chassidus and I didn't ask any questions. That's a whole page. Then starts the next paragraph on the bottom of the page. Where does such a question come from? The whole thing. And then the Rebbe Rashab goes on a paragraph 2. Then the Rebbe Rashab begins speaking about the Chassidische Verbringens. Very interesting expressions there. Rubbing the bones, taking off the rust. Very interesting diburim, the Chassidische Verbringen, what it means. Then the Rebbe Rashab begins explaining what is Chassidus. A page or two, and then he writes on Ikesev Be'efen Shelo Ba'atokis. Shouldn't be copies. The Rebbe Rashab says there's two things. There's one thing that's called Inyan Eliki, there's one thing called Elikus. Inyan Eliki is the concept. There's an attribute of Chochmah, there's an attribute of Bina. There's a concept of Seviv Kolom, and he encompasses worlds. There's a concept of Memala Kolom, he encloses himself in world. So what is it? So these basically, it's a concept. It's a concept and it's an Inyan Eliki. It's a godly matter. It's a part of the chain of creation. But then the Rebbe Rashab says, together with that, it's not only an Inyan Eliki. It's Elikus. It's Elikus as it is being as he expresses himself through the function of Chochmah, or Bina, or Seviv Kolomen, or Memala Kolomen. What is the Rebbe Rashab saying here? He's saying a few things. One, he's saying that together with, in addition to the fact that when we're learning about it, we're learning about a certain concept. So we learned information about the concept, the background, the location, and whatever we can feel in this physical world, whatever we can reach with our understanding. Together with that, we should remember it's not just a concept like a loose stone on the moon. It is actually an expression of the Eibishter, which means, in a sense, more than a sense, and the Chayre, it seems like it's based on the Shara Yichud of the Mittel Rebbe, that this is Achdus Hashem, that a person has to know every detail of the chain of creation is an expression of his. Here he's doing this, here he's expressing that. It is all a chain of creation. Just to mention in a nutshell, the Mittel Rebbe in Shara Yichud, when he goes through the whole chain of creation, 54 chapters. From Lefnei HaTzimtzum till Mata Lahavdla Elef Avdolas Gimel Klippas Atmeis. Mamish to the lowest levels. 54 prokim. And he writes that this is Achdus Hashem, the Mittel Rebbe, Shara Yichud. It's called Ner Mitzvah V'Teireh, that sefer. So you have Shara Emunah in the beginning and Shara Yichud in the back. He goes through the whole Ishtal. First he gives the tools how to understand Get Lashman. And then after the 10th chapter on, he starts going down the different... today you have it already in printed letters, typed letters, not just Rasha ACS. It's online also on ChabadLibrary.org. To understand just a mashal, what the Rebbe, how the Rebbe develops it is that there was a Ratzon Kloli, a general Ratzon, a will to create world. It is like someone has a will to build a building from 10 floors. He builds a building of 10 floors. When a person will come over to him, to the boss, and say to him, what do you want on the 3rd floor? He'll say, I'm not up to it yet. First, I had a general machshava, 10 floors. When I'll get to the 10, when I'll go down in details, then we'll discuss the 3rd floor, the east, the west, the north, the south, and we'll discuss all the details. So the Mittel Rebbe says, the whole Ishtalshus is a Ratzon Kloli. All the details of the Ishtalshus are details of this individual Ratzon. Which means there's a Ratzon Kloli before the Tzimtzum, before the contraction. Then each world has its own Keser. What is the Keser of each world? The Ratzon for that world. Where does it branch out from? From the general Ratzon. So therefore the whole Ishtalshus is one Hemshech. So b'meila here, when the Rebbe Rashab says it in the letter, the Rebbe Rashab says, in the letter, this means you shouldn't forget that this is him. It is him expressing himself. And this is how he goes through, and he says, Bishas, a person will think about it and meditate on the godly matter. And then in addition, which means he will sense that he's dealing with something that's higher than Seichel. So he will start sensing the sensitivity of Getlachkeit, of godliness. Not just Seichel. There's two things. A person is learning the intellect, and then he's learning the hair, what godliness is accomplishing here, what's being expressed there. And the Rebbe Rashab says this is the mile of becoming one thing with Getlachkeit, with godliness, becoming one thing. This is the letter, the Teichon of the letter. The Mela, the same thing is in everything, that the whole Ishtalshus is one Metzias. But we have to remember that sometimes you have so many details, and actually this could be another reason why there weren't any maps made. Because sometimes when you make maps and everything, you forget Bechlal what this is all about, where we're getting to. These are little roads or highways. You're forgetting that there is a palace, and this palace is functioning throughout this whole chain. So this is basically the union of Achdus Hashem. And the Rebbe Rashab explains it, Pasha, that a person learns about Chachma, he should know Chachma is not only Ayin, but Chachma is his expression, the Eibishter's expression, how he relates to Ishtalshalus. How he relates when he's in the level of Chachma, which means he's still removed from Ishtalshalus. It's only like a Nikuda, like a lightning strike. And then you have the next point, which is Bina. He already comes down in the sense of riverbanks, which means he draws down a closer relationship to world. Because the whole inyan of the chain of creation is the relationship between the Eibishter and world. So b'meila, this is the letter from the Rebbe Rashab, but this is something that opens up the eyes, Pasha. I mean, there's certain times a person gives over to another person, explains to him what is Sev of Kolom. Like the Sev of Kolom is he fills up the world, or he encompasses the world. But he forgets, number one, to explain it in a way that he takes out the physical features of it. Not that he puts himself world. He is mislabish himself, that he takes world in consideration, which this is the meaning of enclosing himself. And in addition to that, it's the one that's doing it. It's the expression of who is doing it. It's not just a light that's being filled in there. It is he, as he relates to the world, in a way, in an example, in a parable of one that fills up world. So this is basically, when we're talking about everything, a person has to remember to take out the physical features. You can't take it with the grobe finger. You can't take it with the thick fingers and point at that, because these things are not there. So everything is b'afshota. Aderech, like we mentioned in the past, that the Rebbe Marash writes in a Maimer, that there is Malach Gavriel in Elam Abriya, spiritual Malach from the intellectual Malachim, the highest group. Then you have a rooster in this physical world. Do they have any relationship? They don't, but they do. Because Gavriel and Gever, Hanesan Lasechve Gever, is the shadish, the root of this physical rooster is Malach Gavriel. What do they have in common? They both wake up others. Malach Gavriel wakes up the neshamas midnight, wakes them up to study Torah with the Eibishter.